Hello everybody and welcome to Bradley's mock test. As per usual, up in the top left corner you can see the minor or driving fault count along with the serious faults. We'll do a little explanation as and when they come up. Today Bradley is going to be going down the Templeton / Bridgefoot / country road route, so those of you who are interested in seeing that, do stay tuned. At the moment Bradley does have his test booked. So we're looking for a reasonably clean result here. We'll see what happens throughout the test. It has been a little while since we did this mock test, so he has progressed a little bit since here. Not spoiling any of the results just yet, of course. Just going through a couple of the safety questions at the moment like we normally do. This was a little while ago, so I can't remember exactly which ones I asked him. I think I asked him about how he would check his power steering, but you'll have to forgive me, I can't quite remember. Exercise for the reader though, how would you check your power steering is working before starting a journey? In just a moment, Bradley is going to be asked to move off. He is going to do a reasonably nice job of this. He's making good observations at the moment. You can see there's a couple of cars going past, other learners about. We are on the industrial estate here near the test centre, so always hazards to be aware of. I think you can see the learner in front of us may have just got a little bit too close to that curb. We're probably commenting on this in the car. Bradley fortunately is parked up in a very good position here, so no such issues for him today. As he does move off here, what you might notice, it's a little bit tricky to see on the dash cam, but he does unfortunately roll back ever so slightly here. Certainly not enough that it'd be marked as a serious fault, but given that we are on a hill, I would have liked that clutch to have been just a little bit higher, just to avoid us rolling back at all. There's really no need to be doing that, so I have given him a minor there, just for move off control. As we carry on down the road now, the first thing you'll hopefully notice is there's a big old lorry right in front of us there. Now Bradley actually does quite a nice job of this. He spots it really early. You can see he's brought his speed right down to give it plenty of space to complete its manoeuvre. Neither of us are affecting the other here, so there's not really any reason for us to pull up and stop here. Really good job planning that well in advance. Keeps the traffic flowing if there was anybody behind us as well. As we follow this road, it does bend around to the left here in a moment, just after the silver fence on the left ends. Now it is a little bit of a blind corner. We know there could be long vehicles here because we've just seen one reversing. Now have a little look at Bradley's position. It's okay, but I think about this point we're a little bit wide, and if we were to meet another large vehicle there, we could have been in a little bit of trouble. So I have given him a minor there, just for normal driving position. I would have liked to have seen him be just a little bit slower and a little bit tighter to that curb on the left. As we turn right here, as per usual, Bradley does a very good job of checking his mirrors, popping his signal on. Could have been a little bit closer to the line, but he's realised that and he's kept creeping forwards, as he ought to. Good junction observation, waits for a nice gap, not that it's too busy of a road, and then we carry on. He's made a good job of choosing a gap there on the right hand side. Can be a little bit busy sometimes, but not had that problem today. Those of you who have been to the test centre before will hopefully be quite familiar with this road. There are a couple of tricky turns around here. There are some really nasty, tight, blind junctions. The state of the roads at the moment also not very good. It's really an area that you want to consider really taking your time with. Just make those good observations, take your time, look for good gaps. At the end of the road, I've asked Bradley to go left. Now, here is where things are going to start to get a teeny bit questionable with a little bit of judgment. So, this is a really, really busy junction. And you'll notice there's a van on our right hand side, a couple of vans in fact, both of which are really going to limit our view. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that Bradley stops a little bit far back from the line here. We could creep a little bit closer than this. We know we've got the van on our right hand side. And what Bradley's going to do here in a moment, he can't see to the right at the moment. Now his logic is going to be, when the van goes, I'm going to go. Because if the van's going, surely there's a gap, right? Now what you've got to remember, so you can see one van's gone on the right hand side there, and you can see this Premier van in the rear view mirror there. Now you'll see as soon as that chooses to go, Bradley's going to make the decision to go as well. Now although the van is going, what you've got to remember is that that van is going to drive all the way across the other side of the road and get out of the way of oncoming traffic. We can't see to the right here at all. Imagine if there was a motorbike flying along from the right hand side here. It could be following very close behind that van, and there's no way we'd have been able to stop if that happens. So you see the van goes before us, Bradley goes, and look how exposed we are in the rear view mirror there. If there was another car there, not good at all. So, serious fault for junction observation there. make sure that you can see the road clearly before you go into it. If you can't see, you can't go. What I would like Bradley to have done there is just crept forwards a little bit closer to that line, try his best to see as much as he can without obstructing the road, and if he could see, then he should have gone, but not until then. Now at the roundabout, I've asked Bradley to go left first exit. Gets a little bit confused here, I think. He does miss the first exit. He does realise quite correctly though that he's actually in a left-hand straight ahead lane. At this point I think he realises he's missed the exit, but the good thing he does here is he does something safe. He just carries on straight ahead. He's not got the wrong signal on, he's in the right lane. No issue at all, not a fault if you go the wrong way. What he does do very nicely now is check his mirrors, pop his signal on, and take a safe exit. So, no faults there, and well done to Bradley for not panicking there and just throwing himself at an exit that he wasn't prepared for. Now coming along this road, we've got quite a notorious right-hand turn. After the traffic lights, I've asked Bradley to turn right. Now the lane markings can be a little bit deceptive here. You'll notice what happens when we get through the lights, hopefully. I'm hoping that some of you have seen this turn before and might have even made the same mistake yourself. If not, when we get going here, pay very, very close attention to the road markings. We know we're on a two-way road, so we're in our lane at the moment, everything is good. Now look at this white line on the middle. At no point does this become a box to turn to the right. However, as we come through the lights here, does a good job of this, carries on, he's got right of way. Notice that this little bit of road on the right hand side here is for the oncoming traffic. Now as we come along here, Bradley is going to start to veer into that lane, and I have to pull him back there. So serious fault for lane discipline, really watch that line there. As we do take the turn, it does cut the corner a little bit there, just a minor for cutting the corner. I think he's probably still a little bit flustered from me having to nudge him back to the left there at the last one. Really watch out for that turn, it is a tricky one. As we come along here, lots of potential meeting situations, lots of potential clearance things to practice along here. Bradley's got a great distance from cars on the left, he's leaving a good door's width as we go past. There is a car coming towards us, there's only room for one car in the gap. He slowed himself down nicely to prepare for what could happen here. Other car decides they want to come through, we've got a nice gap to stop. His whole back position is great there. A couple of car lengths back, nice and close to the middle of the road so we don't look like a parked car. All looks good. He does good checks before he goes out. Nothing to worry about at all here. I've just asked Bradley to pull up on the left. Now, there is a nice little bit of curb here that he could have pulled up on a little bit earlier. I'd like to have seen him pull up here, to be honest, because it means that we wouldn't have ended up blocking too much of the road. He's a little bit worried about blocking the driveways here, I think, though, and he does stop in an acceptable place. You can see we're a good 10 metres or 3 car lengths back from that junction, so it is a good place to stop. Stopping a little bit earlier would have meant that we weren't obstructing the road quite as much. However, we've got parked cars along here the whole way on both sides, so it's not too big of a deal. There is room for cars to pass in the middle. Bradley does do exactly the right thing here before we move off, waiting for this van behind us. We are not currently in moving traffic, and therefore we do not have right of way, so we should let the traffic carry on flowing if we can. Does all of his checks, gets the blind spots checked, gets a signal on if we need it. He should always consider a signal if it's relevant, if there's anybody around to benefit. Gets himself moving nicely. I do like how Bradley handles this road in general. It can be a bit of a tricky road. There's lots of blind junctions, crossroads, pedestrians can wander out from all sorts of random places. He controls his speed quite nicely along here. He's constantly looking for all the potential hazards, and he's at a great speed that if anything weird did happen, he's perfectly equipped to deal with it. A little bit of a narrow gap that we have to navigate here. Again, cars parked on both sides of the road, and his speed is really quite good to handle that. Going to take the next road on the left. There you go, perfect example of a pedestrian doing something a little bit strange. As we come around here, some of you may be familiar with this area and may know what's going to happen at the end of this road. We'll see how Bradley deals with this in just a moment. Those of you who aren't so familiar with this area, keep a little eye out and see what signage and road markings you can spot at the end of the road. His clearance is great from these cars. This white car at the end here is parked a little bit awkwardly close to the junction. Bradley does actually do quite a nice job of this, but you'll notice, what does this big word on the floor say? It says stop. Now I know the big red sign's been twisted slightly, but keep an eye out and you tell me when you think Bradley stops for this stop sign. Wait for it, and he doesn't. So, unfortunately, that is a serious fault for a response to traffic signs. At a stop sign, you do have to come to a complete stop, regardless of how clear it is, or how much you think you can see. Now don't worry, your video has not crashed. I have paused the video here because I want you to have a little look at the road ahead. This all happens a little bit quickly. Now you can see there's a little black car up on the left there, and you might be able to see from here that it's parked up on the pavement. Now, given that, does this strike you as a road that's going to be wide enough for two cars to come down? To me, I'm thinking probably not. Now I want you to pay quite close attention to what Bradley's going to do here. If the obstruction is on our side of the road, whose responsibility is it to give way? Us, or the cars on the other side? Those of you who say us, well done, brownie points for you. Now let's watch how Bradley handles this. Once we get going again here, in just 1 second, there we go. I'm going to move out to the right. Now the blue car coming towards us is flying along quite a lot, but unfortunately it is his right of way to do it, and the blue car has to brake really sharply there to avoid us. So unfortunately, Bradley, that is a serious fault for judgment in a meeting situation there. We really should have been a lot slower coming along there, and once we saw that blue car, we needed to get ourselves stopped behind that car. I know the blue car was flying along and doing something unexpected, but these are the situations we have to be prepared for when we're out and about driving on the road. Just because other people make mistakes doesn't mean that we're allowed to drive into them because of it. The good news is Bradley has done a lovely job pulling himself up on the left here. Again, we're in a good position, all of his checks were looking good. And momentarily get him to move off again. All his checks are great here as well, nothing to worry about just yet. He's doing a nice job waiting for traffic to come along. Now that we know the road's not big enough for two cars, he's doing quite a nice job of waiting for potential cars coming towards him as well, so no problems there. Getting moving off here, all of his checks are where they need to be. We get both the blind spot checks. No need for a signal here as there is nobody around to benefit. No problem at all. Those of you familiar with this road are probably again familiar with what we're going to see at the end of the road. This time cars parked are on the other side of the road, so it would be the oncoming traffic's responsibility to stop and give way. Not going to be an issue here. White cars kind of far enough in front of us there that not going to pose an issue to us, but Bradley's speed now is actually quite nice that if anything strange was to happen, he's now prepared to deal with it, which is good. Now again, pay attention to what sign you see in front of you. Big red hexagon, octagon even, tells us what? It's another stop sign. Now, what I'd like you to do here, let's play the game again of tell me when Bradley stops for the stop sign. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, and he doesn't! Bradley! Second fault for response to traffic signs. On the test, once you get a serious fault in one category, you won't get a second one for the same thing. However, to really make the point, Bradley, that you need to be stopping at your stop signs, I'm giving you another serious fault for it. Come to a stop at a stop sign. Do not crawl through it. Not 1 mile an hour, not 0.5 miles an hour, not 0.01 miles an hour. You have to come to a complete dead stop at a stop sign. Okay, now then, at the roundabout, I've asked Bradley to go straight ahead, first exit. This, fortunately, all does now go quite well, so making good observations to the right-hand side here. Bradley's roundabouts in general, very good work. Again, could be stopping just a little bit closer to the line, but he's keeping himself creeping, we're keeping the flow of traffic up, we're not obstructing anybody's view, our own view isn't obstructed, so there's really not an issue there. Just make his life a little bit easier if we did have a slightly tight junction like we did before, where our vision was obstructed to the right-hand side. As we come along this road, this one is actually quite a good road for meeting situations as well. The nice thing about this road, makes it a little bit more obvious, is that because we have the giant painted line in the middle, it's quite obvious that this road is only wide enough for one car. So Bradley's going to do quite a nice job coming along here of stopping for oncoming traffic, giving way to all the right people, stopping in the right places. You can see there's an oncoming car just now. We know we definitely can't fit through the gap, but he's going to take his time. Blue car's going to pull out in front anyway of that car. And all looking quite good. We get some lovely mirror checks here. We're creeping forwards a little bit, making sure we can see before we commit to it. Could have been perhaps just a tiny bit slower there creeping, just in case anything, again, motorbike did come flying along. But we do get good mirror checks here coming in and out past the parked cars. Yeah, more oncoming traffic. Bradley's holdback position does look quite good usually. You can see we're keeping nice and close to the line. He's eased off before we even get to the car, which is great. It's much better to plan it early and go around the car rather than drive up to it. At this point we're committed to going past these cars. That's absolutely fine. no need to panic there and pull back into a gap, especially if we have cars following close behind. Same thing again here, good mirror checks before we go out. Bradley's not driving up to the car, he's driving around it, which is exactly what we want to see. I probably wouldn't bother coming back into that gap, a little bit too tight. His clearance is good here though. And there is a little gap we can stop in a little bit further ahead, so he's absolutely right to have continued there, but we should be stopping behind this black car, which he does very nicely. Again, timing it nicely so that we don't have to come to a stop, makes it nice and easy. We're a little bit close to the black car, so he does correctly slow himself down. More oncoming traffic, and he's right back where he needs to be, in behind this parked car. Again, good stopping position, good holdback position, and good moving off there. So, despite a little issue with the blue car a little bit earlier, we have actually shown ourselves now that we do have quite good discipline with our meeting situations there. If we handled all of them like that, we'd be looking very good. Just make sure when you haven't got the lines, have a little look at the road ahead and just be prepared for anything that could come flying along. Now then, at the next roundabout, it's a little ways off yet. I've asked Bradley to go turn right, second exit. It's a little bit of a funny roundabout, this one. The examiners are usually quite nice and do kind of point out the exit to you if the sat-nav can be a little bit ambiguous at times. Hopefully some of you will start to recognise where we are. We're just about to kind of start the bulk here of the Bridgefoot country road route. This is the nicer bit of it. Unfortunately the road doesn't stay this nice for long. We could have been a little bit more energised getting ourselves onto that roundabout there. We can see it's an empty roundabout. We probably didn't need to slow down quite that much, but he's not come to a stop unnecessarily. We have got good mirrors and signal. We've got good observations. So nothing to worry about. As we come out of town here then, you're going to see that there is a national speed limit sign here. Now, have a look at the width of this road. I know it's hard to see on the dash cam, but have a look at the state of this road. There is no way we are safely going 60 miles an hour on this road. Remember, the speed limit is not a target, it is just a limit. You should always, always, always be driving to the conditions of the road. The national speed limit sign simply means that the previous speed limit ends. It does not tell you that this road is suitable to drive 60 miles an hour down. What we want to see on these sorts of roads is you driving to the conditions, which means make some good progress when it's safe to do so, i.e. the road is wide, clear, pothole free, and if there's sharp corners, if there's sharp turns, sharp potholes, other traffic, lots of narrow things to deal with, slow yourself down, make it feel safe. Tiny little bit of a jaunt down to 40 here before we hit the 20 mile an hour sign into Bridgefoot. Bradley does a lovely job of getting his speed down for that. His speed was great throughout that whole section, we weren't going unnecessarily fast there at all. This road does follow around to the right. There's usually a couple of little parked cars on the left here. We'll see how Bradley handles those. Good mirror checks here, although you can't see them from the dashcam of course, and I've asked Bradley to take the next road on the left. Usually parked cars hiding just around this corner as well, so it's always worth just taking your time just that little bit more, because as we get round here, if there was a car coming towards us like that, and there were parked cars, we'd need to be able to stop pretty quickly, and Bradley does do a lovely job of managing his speed around there. Keep in mind, this is still a 20 mile an hour zone, do not be tempted to speed up to 30 miles an hour here. As we pass the 40 sign, we get a good middle mirror check before we build up our speed. Now this is a rather infamous road, again, a couple of little potholes here and there. It's worse at the moment than it was when I think Bradley did this test, so along here at the moment, this little bit in particular, I'd like Bradley to be making a little bit more progress. You can see we're on a 40 mile an hour stretch, we're kind of only going 25, the car's going to be reading about 26, 27 here. Now, I think we really could be making a little bit more progress, so I'm going to give him a minor there for appropriate speed. You can see the road, we've just passed the national sign, and it's an empty road, it's a straight road, we can see clearly, there's no hazards that we need to be dealing with here. He's very slowly building up his speed. We're sitting at about 33, 34 now. Slowly making our way up to 40. Car's probably reading 40 miles an hour along here. I'd like to see a little bit more energy along here as well. It is a national road, and if it is safe to make progress, try and get a little bit of progress made while it's safe to do so. Really would like him to be a little bit faster down here. Examiner's judgment here, if they think you're going too slow, it could even possibly be a serious Depends how long you go for it for. Now, as we're coming up to a slightly blind corner with the van parked on the left, Bradley is now absolutely right to be bringing his speed down. Good mirror checks to go out past it. If there wasn't anything coming, would be an appropriate speed to deal with it. This is what we mean by driving to the conditions. End of the road, ask Bradley to turn left. This is a nasty tight blind junction, as all of the junctions are along here. All the junctions along this route really are really slow, creepy, crawly first gear junctions, and all of the corners are very slow second gear corners. Bradley handles this quite nicely, keeps himself creeping forwards nice and slowly, all good there. Sun really not helping with our visibility here, but we'll make the most of it. It's nice to get a little bit of sun in Dundee now and again, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. All these corners, really quite unpleasant. What I always say to everybody along here, if you're going to meet another car on the corner, don't. By which I mean, if you can, try and plan it so that you arrive before or after the other car, especially if it's a slightly longer or larger vehicle. You really don't want to meet a car on that corner. It can be really unpleasant to deal with. Again, a little bit slow along here. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road, and you can see down at the bottom there, we're barely scratching 26, 27 miles an hour on the speedometer in the car there. The dash cam usually reads a little lower than inside the car. Again, examiner's judgment here really could be erring on the side of a serious fault if he doesn't make a little bit more progress here. I've given him just a couple of minors here because I think with the sun, it's the first time he's seen this road as well. I'm giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but again, it's a straight road, we can see nice and clearly. We're not holding anybody up at the moment. It could be examiner's judgment if there was other traffic behind that we were impeding with our low speed. Alas, we are now coming up to yet another very sharp corner. His speed does come right down, which is good. Again, try not to meet any cars on the corner if we can help it. You can see the state of the potholes there as well. You really don't want to be driving over those at speed. Coming up to Pinecone Cafe on the left here, or cafe if I'm feeling slightly more posh. This next corner, again, also quite tight, does bend round to the right here. The nicer thing about this one is the visibility is slightly better, so if you look to the right nice and early, you can just about make out any other cars coming around. Bradley's going to bring his speed down really nicely for it. Keeps himself nicely in his lane, which is great, exactly what he needs to do. We maybe don't need to go 4 or 5 miles an hour around there, but there's not really anything wrong with it either. He's kept it controlled, he's kept it safe, he's well in his lane there, we've not held anybody up, we've not met a car on the corner. I'm quite happy with that. At the end of the road, I've asked Bradley to turn left. Again, all the junctions on this road, horrible, tight, creepy crawly first gear junctions, so Bradley is very correctly checking his mirrors, putting a signal on, and he's going to get his speed right down for the end of the road. You can see other cars coming along here, especially if they cut that corner, can make your life really difficult. Really take your time, and look how much the car is juddering over those potholes as well. We cannot go any faster over those, so Bradley's absolutely right to be doing what he's doing along here. Coming along here then, the road is still a national. I would still like to see Bradley making a little bit more progress here. We're not yet holding anybody up behind us, but you can sort of see there are some cars creeping up on us in the distance in the rearview mirror there. I have known the examiners at this point, if students have been a little bit slow, to very politely ask them what they think the speed limit is. If you get asked that at this point on the test, it's probably a little bit of a very nice hint that you should probably be speeding up a little bit. Going back into sunny old Dundee then, after a little detour into Angus there. Yeah, quite a difficult test route this one. Lots of little things to watch out for there, but the big thing along here is it is a national road. Make some progress when you can, slow down when you can't. Bradley's done a really, really fantastic job of the slow bits there. All of his corners and all of his junctions were fantastic. I'd just really like to see a little bit more oomph and a bit more energy along some of these straight bits. Again, this bit of road, this little corner, fine, a little bit slow around the corner, but there's really no reason for us to be going 25, 30 along here. This is very easily a 40, 45, 50 mile an hour stretch of road. Especially this little bit here. Dead straight road, it's widened out a little bit, it's a lot flatter, there's no nasty potholes now. He's making a little bit of progress, as you can see. The dashcam makes it feel quite fast, but in reality we're really only going 35 miles an hour here at this point. The hill's probably helping him make a little bit of progress here, which is good. But I'd still like to see a little bit more. Of course, most important thing you have to watch out for here, according to the sign on the left, is red squirrels. Not just grey squirrels, Nobody's bothered about them, but the red squirrels, whew, worth watching out for. Big warning sign. Anyway, at the end of the road, I've asked Bradley to turn left. He's going to do that quite nicely. Picks the right lane. Mirror checks all good. Signal all good as per usual. Quite a nice open junction this one, but can occasionally be a little bit busy. He waits for a nice gap. Again, advisory could be just a little closer to that line, would make his life a little bit easier, but it is something we have been discussing and something that I'm sure is going to be absolutely fine for the test. Now, back onto a nice little 40-mile-an-hour road. You can see, in fact, it's a good point. I mean, if you compare this road to the previous one, the previous road we were on was a national road, and that last little stretch I don't think is any worse than this bit of road. And this is limited to 40. You know, people normally have to bring their speed down for this little bit rather than rushing it up. So, yeah, definitely could be making a little bit more progress on that other road. But we're not going to stress about it too much. I've nattered on about it for long enough. He is doing a good job here. Dashcam is reading 34-35, so in the car that's going to be reading 37-38. Your speedometer in the car is considered accurate for the purposes of the test, so you don't want to play the game of going, well, I know the speedometer technically reads a little bit slow. No, Bradley's going a great speed for this road according to the car speedometer, which is the law as far as the test is concerned. So, all good so far. Nice little straight bit of road, not really too much to mention down here. Kind of heading past Camperdown at the moment. You can sort of see some signs in the distance. Get a couple of nice exciting roundabouts coming up soonish. They're not particularly difficult, but they can be a little bit tricky to deal with. The first one in particular is quite small and can be a little bit busy. We'll see how Bradley handles it in just a moment. His lane discipline is really good along here. Overall, Bradley's control of the car is really, really quite good. He's a really, really good driver. Very, very solid control of the car. I think the only thing really coming up so far is just that we need to be a little bit more aware of other people and how they could affect us, be a bit more prepared for that, and just those road markings. At the roundabout, I've asked Bradley to go straight ahead. You'll notice on the floor here that the straight ahead lane is on the right for this one. He very correctly positions himself here. You can see that van's coming around, makes good observations. They can be a little bit difficult to see, especially with the sun being a bit blinding today. Holds his position on the right there, does a nice good job of that. Mirror signal, all looking good. At the next roundabout, I've asked Bradley to turn left. Now this is a 2-lane roundabout, and you'll notice that when we get going here, there is a car coming around the roundabout. Now Bradley's logic here is that because the car is on the inside of the roundabout, it's not going to affect him. However, this is a common misconception. What you have to remember here is that all cars on the roundabout have right of way. Have a little look in the rearview mirror as we come on here. That grey car on the right hand side there. We've got lucky that they were actually turning right. When they are on the roundabout, it is absolutely their decision if they want to check their mirrors, signal left and move over into our lane. And if they had have done that and we would have forced them into the right hand lane there, that would have been a serious fault. So give way to everybody on the roundabout regardless of which lane they are in. Slip road, however, quite nice, builds his speed up very nicely there, does good observations, mirror signal, all good, nothing too concerning there at all to worry about. Speed along here, just creeping up a teeny tiny little bit. It is a 40-mile-an-hour stretch. You can see the dash cam there reading 41, so need to be a little bit careful with this. Again, examine his judgment. He wasn't there for long, he's brought it back down just in time for the exit anyway. It is a nice long exit, so we don't need to bring it down too rapidly. But yeah, just watch that speed doesn't creep up too much along the slip road there when you come onto the carriageway. Roundabout, we're turning right back towards the test centre. Does quite a nice job of this. Bit of a tricky one, busy roundabout, straight ahead and right hand lane really is on the right hand side here, which he has noticed and positioned himself very nicely in. Busy roundabout on a hill. Nice combination. Fortunately, Bradley's hill starts are quite good, so we're not going to have too many concerns here. One of those roundabouts where you really do just have to sit here sometimes and wait for a gap. Don't ever feel nervous if you're sat there waiting forever for a gap. By the time you go for your test, you are more than capable of judging whether a gap is safe or not. And if you judge that there are no safe gaps, don't go. Sitting there and waiting for a gap is not a driving fault. You can't just pull out in front of other cars just because you've been sat there for a little while. There was a junction I was doing the other week that I think I got stuck at for nearly 8.5 minutes because there just weren't any safe gaps, and sometimes that just happens. It's rare that you sat there for that long, but it wasn't a driving fault. Bradley picks out a very nice gap there, nice and confidently gets himself going, which is exactly what we need to do there. Sometimes on roundabouts like this, you're not always going to find the perfect gap, and you might need to be prepared to put your foot down a little bit and get out of the way as quickly as you can. It's keeping nice and tight to the right hand lane here, which is good. We're not taking the next exit, but the one just after that. His mirror checks are good, his signal's good, he's moving over nice and early, which is great because not only does it position us well, it stops everybody else from undercutting you, which is very helpful. Coming along here, I believe I'm about to ask Bradley to turn right back towards the test centre. You can see he's going to very nicely position himself all the way inside this little box, exactly what we need to be doing. Perfectly in between the lines there, which is good because it means traffic can carry on flowing from behind us. There is a little gap there which he spots and takes, nice and confident, but also not so fast that we lose control going around the corner. Very nicely handled indeed. Back along the road now towards the test centre. This bit can catch a few people out just because you spent the last 10-15 minutes driving at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour in some places. We've come off a slip road, we've done busy roundabouts, and it's at this point that you really do have to be a little bit careful and just take your time. Remember that this is a 30 mile an hour road. Bradley not having that issue today. He's brought his speed down very nicely for the junction. Looks like I've asked him to turn right given our speed. Yes. So his speed is fantastic for that turn. Looking good. He's waited for all the traffic quite correctly there. Kept himself creeping forwards, which is quite nice because it's much easier than stopping. As we come along here, we're kind of getting towards the end of the test now. Shortly going to ask him to carry out a manoeuvre. This little bit of road is quite weird. The road markings aren't entirely clear here. He has kind of nudged over the marking just a little bit there, but with how the other cars were coming around the corner, I've let him off there as not worthy. He could have kept himself just a little bit more towards the middle of the road there. It does follow around to the right, even though it looks a little bit strange, but it is the correct thing to do. Going to finish off today by asking Bradley to do a reverse bay park. A little bit of a tricky one. You do get a choice normally on the test of whether you do it to the left or right. I've purposely been irritating and brought Bradley this way so that he has to do one to the right hand side, because I am just mean like that. However, it is really exactly the same as doing it to the left. He's done a nice job of picking out a good spot here with 3 clear spaces in a row, which is exactly the right thing to do if you get given the option. He's going over to the right hand side and he's going to use the 45-degree method here, which is absolutely fine. All of his observations were fine there. I think he was aiming for the middle space here. I think he might have got himself a teeny tiny bit confused, because if I remember rightly, in just a moment when we get reversing here, he's going to get a little bit confuddled about which space he's going for, and he's probably going to try and put himself in the one next to the car, which is fine. It's one of the nice things about the 45 degrees method is that it does let you park in between 2 cars without cutting across either of the spaces there. He's just waiting for a moment there. I think he's just trying to decide which space he's actually aiming for. I'm probably being just about as helpful as I always am in mock test situations, which is not very if he's asking me anything there. And you can see, yeah, we could have aimed for the middle space there, but it looks like he's going for the one next to the white car. Again, not a problem. Do want to be getting that wheel around here. As we are going back though, unfortunately, observation-wise, we didn't really have any blind spot checks there before we started getting ourselves going. We have been rolling backwards now for a little while, and we haven't had any blind spot checks. Unfortunately, this would go down as a serious fault for observations. Gotta get that head spinning the whole time you're doing it. As I always nag everyone about, if you've ever had a lesson with me. On the whole though, control actually quite nice. Coming a little bit close to the white car, but we're within our lines on both sides, so there's really nothing to worry about there. Control was good. I think we weren't aiming for that space, but we got ourselves in a space nicely, so I can't really fault him for the control part there. Just get that head spinning. Whenever you start doing those manoeuvres, get that head all the way around, get those blind spots checked. Don't slack on them at all. Other than that, a good manoeuvre. Well done, Bradley. And with that, it brings us to the end of Bradley's mock test. So, how do you think that went? We've got a few little faults there, obviously. Biggest things really for Bradley, make sure you stop at a stop sign. Just a little bit slower with some of your meeting situations, particularly when there aren't the road markings there. Other than that, just be a little bit careful with some of those road markings. That right-hand turn in particular, just past the traffic lights in the fire station, notoriously bad. A little bit more progress on the country road would have been nice. The control is all there, which is the important thing. None of these issues that have come up today are particularly big issues. It never feels particularly good when you get a lot of serious faults on a mock test, but don't let it wind you up. Honestly, it's the whole point of doing these. It's great to do to figure out what things are going well, what things we maybe need a little bit of help and a little bit of work on, and nothing particularly too worrying there that we can't go out and fix in a couple of lessons, honestly. So I think the big thing for Bradley, really, just take your time a little bit more. Don't be in such a rush to get going with things. All the issues there, really, apart from the being a little bit slow along the country road, exactly the opposite problem. We were trying to rush out of the junction with the van, we were trying to rush through the stop signs, we were trying to rush through that meeting situation. Just hold back a little bit more, make sure that you're 100% convinced it's safe before you do anything, and we really shouldn't have any issues. Thank you to everybody who has been watching along. If you've got any questions, feedback, comments, anything like that, please feel free to pop them down below and I will try and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Other than that, thank you very, very much for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one. Ta-ra for now.